Ah la la! Hi everyone, Green Thinny Snake Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Tnght EP, Two. This is a brand new EP of music from producer duo Lunas and Hudson Mohawk, aka Tnght. In the earlier half of this decade, these guys got together and dropped an EP for the ages, a short collection of 5 tracks that helped bring the burgeoning tide of trap to its knees, with zany samples and booming bass and excessive drops. Okay, obviously this EP didn't really bring trap to its knees, but there are some songs on it that did catch on pretty wildly. I did name it my EP of the year, even though I do think generally this project is a little underrated and underappreciated. I have to specify, when I say trap, I don't mean any shade of it that would land under the hip-hop umbrella. I'm talking about the style of electronic dance music that is inspired by it. And that style is still going today, but it's not nearly as novel as it was when Tnight's debut EP came out. And granted, while Lunas and Hudmo were far from the first to reinterpret trap music for DJ sets and dance floors, the approach they displayed on their debut EP was a lot more colorful and unorthodox than a majority of everything else out there at the time. From the incessant vocal samples on Higher Ground, to the pish 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 percussion bouncing bass and weird bubble sound effects on Buggin'. While there was another single in 2013, Hudmo and Lunas went back about their business as if this crossover never happened, which I guess wasn't hard to do considering this was a collaboration that literally nobody expected ever anyway. But now that it's happened, I'm desperate for more. Or at least I was. I mean, it's 7 years after the fact now. At one point, I just started assuming I would never hear more Tnght music. But I guess I'm glad they didn't let the rest of the decade play out in complete silence. Now we have 7 more tracks, 22 more minutes of material, and while I like it, I'm afraid fans of the last EP will not necessarily take to this one as hard. Not only because the musical trend Tnght was born out of has trended downward a bit, but also because Lunas and Hudmo have changed the sound of Tnght up a little bit too. For sure, this EP is still very banger focused, but the progressions are a bit more abstract this time around, sometimes drifting off into these very bare-bones passages or even near silence in the case of First Body. It's like the duo's embracing these more deconstructed elements that are all the rage in the underground right now, which I think it's cool that they're keeping up to date and they're experimenting and staying on the cutting edge, but it's not always to the EP's benefit. Because of this, the song First Body that I just mentioned hit some pretty significant lulls along its runtime, and even though I loved teasers from this thing like Serpent for its whooping manipulated vocals and wild drum circle percussion, I know there were fans who were not really all that crazy about how long it took for Hudmo and Lunas to really get to the meat of the drop on the song. And again, that's the thing about this EP, it's nowhere near as direct as its predecessor. And I know there are some people reacting to that as if this EP is bad or somehow significantly worse than the first one, but I think what these guys are mostly doing on this project is playing with expectations and just employing some mind games. For someone looking for something sweeter and hookier on this EP, I would listen to DOLLAZ. It's got some playful vocal samples, some rotund bass, a rumbling beat, headbanging drops, and an engaging progression that keeps you on the edge of your seat. What is not to like? The song Clubfinger, true to its name, feels like a weird twist on an EDM festival anthem, with its thumping kicks and bright laser synthesizers. I'm not going to say the nonsensical vocal samples placed throughout the track aren't obnoxious, because they are a little bit, but I mess pretty heavily with the synced up synths, bass, and drums that hit at multiple points of the song. It's hyper aggressive and absolutely ridiculous. I prefer wonkier, glitch hoppier numbers on this record though, like What It Is. The vocal samples are a lot more lighthearted, the groove feels like something out of an old Neptunes beat. I could even see Pharrell doing the weird auto-tune vocal hits placed at a few points of the song. The song I'm in a Hole toward the end of the EP is okay, it has some cool moments. It's still a little underwhelming though, with its tiny vocal samples and wash of synthesizers that kind of close up shop, but I do think Gimme Some makes for a pretty bold finish. The song is covered with this vocal sample, this loud, distorted, disorienting Gimme Some. Those contrast weirdly with the synth intervals that are distant and fuzzy and erratic, Tnght building up these very skeletal passages into even odder grooves where the synths start progressing into these nonsensical melodies. breeze. It sounds like a Tangerine Dream synth odyssey, but a lot more sour. There are some indescribably weird passages after this point. I love the attitude, I love the groove, I love that it feels like Tnght are basically giving middle fingers in every direction. Overall, I thought this EP was a decent follow-up. It's not nearly as adrenaline pumping as the debut. I mean, it does go hard, for sure. That's undeniable, but it's a bit more cerebral. It's a bit more about subverting expectations. A few duds in the track list, sure, but there are more highlights than there are not. Also appreciating how most of these tracks flow into each other, even the weird giggly skit after the halfway point. Look, at the end of the day, I hope we just don't have to wait 7 more years for Tnght to return with another EP or album, but I guess I can sleep more soundly knowing that at any time, these guys can return with a fresh take on the banger. I'm feeling a decent 2-strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this EP a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video for you to check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Tnght, forever.